All right, we got a great podcast today. We have obviously myself and Coach D here as usual, but we have our guest, the Thrillerman, Jonathan Hilliman, with us today. So we're excited to have him. Played college 4 years at Boston College, and then did his. I'm assuming it's your grad transfer year, your fifth year with Rutgers, and then played with the New York Giants in 2019. I think also with the I don't know if it was the UFL or the USFL, but I'm not sure which league the Brahmas are in, but I think it's the UFL they were in. Am I right? Yeah, I think I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah, had a fantastic career. Was a fantastic high school player at St. Peter's Prep. Really had a great athletic career. Now is really working with running backs and helping them get better. So, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Where are you driving to?
Driving back home was just at a meeting in Princeton with some athletes. They're probably gonna be doing something athletic related with their guys at in one of the high schools. So it'll be good. Exciting for it.
Very
Awesome.
cool. Very cool. First off, talk about your career as an athlete, and what you did as a player, and some of the things that you really think helped you improve your skills over your career, and then we'll roll from there.
Yeah. All right. So I'm originally from Plainfield, New Jersey. Grew up there. Um, Went to St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City after eighth grade. From there, though, the build up from those two periods, I would say some of the things that I did that helped me. Well, I was fortunate enough to have my uncle Danny Harrison. He played professionally a couple of years, so he kind of knew what it took. He kind of knew what it was gonna the things that I would have to be willing to do, sacrifices that I had to make to be where I wanted to be. And so I verbalized that I want to play running back. My dad always thought I should play linebacker. Linebacker
Damn
was
right.
actually my favorite position, low key. But I wanted to win a Heisman Trophy. Linebackers don't really do that, so that was kind of my rationale for that. But but between those times, it was just a lot of detailed work. It wasn't really a lot of nowadays. You see it's a lot of intense, a lot of different things that these young kids are doing. They're kind of going for a lot of like the big foot doctors thing, or a lot of trendy type of stuff. With us, it was very much a lot of the same stuff, but the biggest thing was mastery of it. You know what I'm saying? We like staying low, being able to bend, true speed, which is outside of track speed, which is a lot of running. We were doing a lot of 600s, a lot of interval running. What I'm saying, 600s, 300s with a break, bleachers, a lot of like things that people kind of would throw away and say I get bored with pretty quick. You know what I'm saying? A lot of boring stuff. It's kind of boring me talking about it, but the effects and the benefits from it definitely were not. So I would say a lot of the stuff that I did, growing up, I had to do a lot of very, very basic things. Think people will be surprised, but there's a lot of basic things just done right, consistent. You know.
Um, what made you choose Boston College as the place you wanted to go initially?
Well, at the time it seemed like a very good idea. The running back. Yeah, it's funny. Statute of limitations, right? At the
Yeah.
time, it seemed like a great idea. The running back at the time before me was Andre Williams. He actually played for the Giants a few years as
Right.
Yeah.
well with the
Big dude.
Chargers and things of that nature. Yeah, and so at that time, their line was that same line was coming back for another year, and they had guys, behind them. So I felt like, we were a very big run offense. Adazio had history of having great lines. It wasn't too far away from home, from Jersey, about 4 hours, five give or take. Great academics, and so it just was a brand that I didn't really want to like. If you have a brand like that you could that it seems like a great fit for you. It's kind of like, going against going against a world beater, a once in a generation athlete in the draft. I wouldn't say it was a once in a generation opportunity, but it's just one of those name brand, one of those no brainer type of situations that I just felt like I just had to capitalize on. I had a lot of different, as you know, as you knew, I had a lot of different, options and things of that nature. Which at the time it seemed cool, but it was kind of confusing at the time.
Yeah, I can
A lot of
imagine.
people hitting you, a lot of people hitting you up from different area codes, different times. You got people from the West Coast hitting you up at 3 a.m. because for them it's like, oh, we're just leaving the office, and I'm like, well, but it was a relief to go to Boston to choose Boston College. To go there, the history of the place, and I was just looking forward to being a part of it.
What was if what did it come down to? What was your final three?
Well, the final three, Boston College actually wasn't in my initial top five. My top five, if I can remember it, my top five was Ohio State, Michigan, Rutgers, Alabama, and Vanderbilt. And so at first I chose Rutgers. I don't know if people remember, but I chose Rutgers at first. During that time, it was tough. There was a lot of issues in house as far
Yep.
as the sports program, and my parents and well, mainly my dad, my uncles, the athletes in my family, obviously and my mom as well, and our family. We just didn't feel comfortable going there. We just didn't feel comfortable with what was going on at the time to put my career dreams and hopes and academic goals and those things on the line at that specific time. It just didn't really seem very steady. And so, after the state championship game, kind of decommitted. And then from there, kind of opened up my recruitment. It was Michigan State that took a visit, Penn State, Miami, and then Boston College. And, I just felt the best at Boston College at all those places.
Who was the head coach at the time of Boston College?
Steve Adazio.
Oh, Dacio. Okay. Okay.
Tough, buddy. You doubt. I mean, I think a lot of people too, because you played for Richie Hansen, right, at St. Peter's,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, I know he kind of has a persona of being a certain type of way. So, Adazio going there kind of probably seemed like the right fit in terms of coaching styles and whatnot. Am I wrong to say that?
Nah, I'm older now, so I mean, I can really speak on it. Coaches, I didn't really. My dad was my first coach. I feel like I can survive him. I can survive any coach. You know what I'm
There you
saying?
go.
There's
I think a lot
nobody.
of us feel that way about our own
Yeah,
bands. I'll tell you that.
yeah. So coaching styles didn't really matter to me. Like a coach, me, I had a mechanism as a player, and I still have it now. When with administrators and things of that nature, anybody I'm working with that we're on an administrative level, people that yell and kind of do a lot of yelling, tough coaches. I can morph their speaking voice. And so
Gotcha.
while they're yelling, I can just kind of morph
100%.
their speaking voice into like, okay, this is what they're saying to me. So it really wasn't that. It was like I said, it was the fit. It was the whole. I hadn't really known about Adagio before.
Right.
I didn't know later. I didn't know until later that he was with Urban Meyer in the national championship run and all of that. So didn't know much about Coach Adazio before coming. I was more so sold on Boston College's history. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Right.
Doug
Right.
Flutie and all them and things of that nature. So I knew about BC from that. And that's what kind of really drove me. And then, when I met Coach Adazio, it was kind of like, okay, this is another tough coach. That's
Yeah,
kind of what that was.
absolutely. See, and I think that's great too that you were kind of programmed into that from your high school program going in there because a lot of the guys sometimes they look at coaching styles and just delivery of everything within a
Right.
coach and from a coach, right? And that can kind of either shy people away or have guys flock to it. But we all know there's a lot more to a coach than just their demeanor, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of that goes into that.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, a lot of it, kids. I mean, I like that's. I do see that a lot. What you just said, 2,000%. I would say just a quick tidbit for the younger, if they're listening. Well, I'm sure they're listening. I wouldn't really base it off of that. Do your
Right.
research, right? Do your research, but you shouldn't allow somebody, whether administrator or not, to change how you feel about a place or change how you feel about a game. I've seen many times tough coaches have kind of punked, great players maybe great physically, but just not all the way there mentally into what they wanted. Punk them into transferring, or maybe I don't want to play anymore, things of that nature. So
Right.
I would very much like, but like you said, you are right. You are completely right in that take. But I would tell guys, don't really base it off of that. Really try to do your research and really, you know, keep the main thing the main thing. You're there for an education. You're there for an opportunity if you want to go to the next level. And so don't allow anybody to kind of don't go there for a coach if you would, because like as we know, they leave.
It's a great
So
point. It's an absolutely great point.
I
yeah,
think that's and that's a huge thing that's changed over, which was during your career, and obviously now it's even more so, right? It's continuing to scale up from that standpoint where coach turnover is higher and higher. What are you noticing? Like the kids that you work with,
right.
what are those kids like now? Is there a difference between them and when you were coming up and that kind of a thing?
Well, we always say that there's different. I'm sure your era is different from mine, things of that nature. I think that yes, the kids are different, but the era is different. I think that you're only as tough or as weak or as smart or as clever as your era. You know what I'm saying? I think that the era that we're living in now, if we're complaining about the kids, right, we have to first complain about the era that,
Yeah.
that they're in. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that they're really, and obviously the question, obviously people are expecting me to say that kids are soft. Well, okay, to some degree, right? To some degree, but if you kind of see how they're coached, the environment they're in, they're raised, whatever. I'm not going to tell people how to raise their kids, but you can kind of see, okay, well, I can understand why a kid is that way. You know what I'm saying? It's just not, he's not, afforded certain behavior. He's not afforded certain, coaching, certain mentoring. He's not, so he or she's going to be a certain way. But from what I've seen, is that yeah, the kids have bought in. Some kids have bought into that era of just like very inclusive, very I call it participation trophy.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a chance, right? And but there's still, and you have a lot of those kids out there, probably more than there was in the past. But you still see those old souls that kind of want to be great. They kind of want, some type of merit behind the award, if you would, right? Feeling like, okay, I actually am the best person here. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just given to me. And so you see that, but like you would know, every era that produces more kids that are more on the other side than the merit-based kids. So I see a lot of entitlement. You see a lot of with the NIL sweeping through. You see a lot of kids kind of what could you do for me? You know what I'm saying? How could you get me there? You don't really see much about push. Back in the day, it was like the NFL or bust. You know what I'm saying? It was like that's it. Like D1 bound, yeah, everybody going D1 bound, right? Which that obviously we know it's not the case, but everybody's trying to push for the next to be the very, very best and go to the very, very top. Now it's like, well, if I can just get to a school and I can get on an NIL something, or
I
if I can
get
get a
paid
little
now.
piece, I'm
Yeah.
good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I got a wage in college. You know what I'm saying? And so there's not really that push, that need really, which I kind of tell my guys and girls when they're working with RBV, is that you got to need it. You can't want it. You can't be I want to do this. A lot of kids don't want to do this, but what narrows it out, who the kids that will get it, the haves and the have-nots, is those who need it, those who are urgent about it, those who kind of like, look, I mean, I'm not getting no participation trophy, I got to prove that I'm the best. And so but yeah, you see a lot of it, and you're seeing it more and more, but I think a lot of it has to do with the era that the kids are in, and the stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think uh, social media, obviously, which everybody's on, and then combined with NIL, transfer portal, how the
Yep.
opportunities have changed, right, and what the opportunity possibly can be, and I think that has obviously making college football at the highest level of college football and college sports into like a quasi, well, I don't even know what's quasi, just professional league, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
to at least to an extent, just varying different pay scales, but a professional league, right? So that has changed. I think that could be, I think kids might be, and maybe their parents too. I don't know. are confused as to what opportunity should I chase. Because I think your point's very valid. Like when you were coming up, it was like, okay, my goal is to get a Division I scholarship and then to leverage that to have a chance to play in the NFL. It's pretty concrete. Get my college degree, do all those things, right? It's kind of like, okay, these are 3 simple steps of things that are my main goal, my main driver of everything, right? Whereas now there's like, this kid's goal might be to be the NFL. This kid's goal might be to be a college player that somehow gets as much money as he can at Division I. Like this guy's goal is purely like just to be able to get an opportunity in college. And there's various different levels of goals, which is different. Like I think like even players that played at Division III level, even 10, 15 years ago, probably still their goal was still like, hey, try to get a Division I scholarship, try to go to the NFL, get my college degree, no matter what level they end up falling to. You know what I mean? But now it's like very, very different. So when you coach a kid, you kind of have to, I guess, figure out what is this goal that he has and how do I move him towards that goal? And this kid over here is in the same class. He has a slightly different goal, right? Like, and they're in the same class together, and you're trying to push them in the right direction. So I think that's a really, really interesting point that you brought up. That it seems like there's making so many different things going on, so many different goals, which changes it drastically.
And Dave, I think just to add to that too, right?
Yeah.
I think the whole, we always go back and talk about how with the social media and the access to, let's talk high school players right now. It used to have to be that a college coach had to go through a high school head coach in order to communicate with the player that they wanted to communicate with. Yeah. And now you're seeing a lot of the middleman or, that person take over, or a college coach can now go directly to a parent or to a player just through that social media, where now the high school head coach who oftentimes gave the guidance, right, or had the knowledge to explain how this process works or the steps needed to be taken. Now you're seeing a college coaches go directly to the player, to the parents, and cut off that middleman, where now you're seeing high school head coaches, some guys don't even have a clue. A high school kid goes to their coach, says, hey, I committed. He's like, I didn't even know you were getting recruited by this person, buddy. You know what I mean? And I think you're seeing a lot more of that than back in the day. And it's crazy to think about, but it's the realities of what college football is right now.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's a lot of, and now it's funny that you said that, because I was talking to an athlete about that, and he told me a story about a similar situation, different athlete, similar situation. All right, their coach had no idea that they were being recruited by the school, so he didn't think it was legitimate. Right. But then when he reached out to the school, and he said, "Yeah," and it was we offered him. It's right. Yeah, he committed. Are you cool with it? Are you? They thought the coach was calling to congratulate, and so it's funny that you say that. I think a lot to do with and I hate to be negative. I don't like to be, but I try to be real. And if you don't think if you think real is negative, then I was taught it's just fake. So what it is I feel like it's easy to manipulate a kid rather than a coach, right? It's easy
100%.
So say it one more time.
I said 100%, right?
Right.
And
so
naive,
I feel like
young, immature.
Yeah.
Oh my! I mean, think about it. 100%. Like these guys send those camp letters, invites to every human under the sun, and now all of a sudden that somebody gets an invite to a college camp, and hey, I got a scholarship from a Power 4. Here we go. Mm-hmm. It's like, but we got no. You know what I mean?
And because in retrospect, when we were in school, there were some colleges that reached out to me that I didn't know about. I mean, that I knew. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. There were colleges that I didn't know reached out to me till later. I was in school and they said, Jay, why didn't you give me a shot? Well, you didn't call me. You completely just, I said, I had no idea. So apparently, I guess I'm not going to say that people blocked it off, but it was told that I had an offer, but I didn't get it.
Right.
So
Which is the
you
other
have a
side of
lot
the
of,
coin of what I'm
yeah,
just explaining, right? Like, so
exactly.
the coach at the end of the day controlled the narrative, whether it be positive or whether it be negative, right?
Yeah,
So there's there's two sides to it.
yeah. And so in a way, I'm a middle child, so I'm always gonna see both sides of the coin.
Oh
But
boy.
you know what I'm saying? But hey, middle child, we the best. But at the same time, so it's good. I would say it's good in a way. I would say for power to the players. The player in me is saying beautiful. You deserve to have some type of freedom in this because without the players, there's no reason why we're doing any of this, right? And
Right.
so I do say that the power should be with the players. But just like Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility, right? And you're supposed to, but you have to understand that. You have to understand that these coaches, this system is in place for a reason, right? In a way, those college coaches necessarily, I mean, dealing with high school coaches, that makes it tough. It makes it tough to recruit because sometimes they might not be on the same page. Well, we were just talking about goals, right? They may not have the same goal. My goal as a recruiter is just look, I'm trying to get this kid in for maybe this kid. I'm trying to get him in just for the recruiting, just to show the athletic director in the school that look at all these kids we recruited, right?
Yep.
This is the recruiting class we brought in. This kid I'm bringing in because this kid might be a role player for us coming in junior year. He may start by then. This kid's a bona fide starter from the jump. You know what I'm saying? So there's different goals, and you're telling everybody different things, right? And these high school coaches know that to a T. So they're kind of that bridge. Now, without that, there is no bridge. There's just that. I could talk directly to a player. Obviously they have certain time periods where, there's dead periods where you can't be contacted, things of that nature. They had that back then. But now it's like and even then who really follows those rules all the
Yeah,
time, right?
yeah.
Right.
And so
Right. Right.
you have those
There's a very
conversations.
fine line,
Yeah,
gray
come on
area.
now, we
Yeah,
know
yeah,
it.
yeah.
We know it. And so there's just that constant direct. And I think once again we're going back to what I was saying about the error. That just seems to be the error. Back in the day, you had to go to the grocery store to get your groceries. Back in the day, you had to go do that. Now, I got to call a taxi or I got to walk or I got to bum a ride from a friend. Now, I don't have to do that. I can go on Uber Eats. I can go on Uber. I could use the same app for two of the
Yeah.
same things,
Yeah.
right? And so it's an instant thing. And now you're seeing with these kids, their mentality is instant. Right? They're like, with trainers, if you can't get me a 4.4 right now by the end of the week, I'm done with you. If you can't
Great
make me
point.
All-American by next month, I'm done with you. If you can't, okay, this transfer portal, once again, it's a great thing, right? But now you're starting to see everybody's thinking that way. I'm putting myself in the transfer. That's instant too. Back in the day, you had to sit and wait. So a lot of kids didn't want to transfer. A lot of kids were thinking, okay, well, maybe I got to stick it out here because if I sit and wait, that's another year and that's a year off. That's not a year that they're giving me back. That's a year against me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna deal with this screwy coach here and
Yeah.
things like that. So you're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing a lot of power into the players, but the establishment understands that, and they're saying, well, now we can come back and manipulate. Now we can come back and get something from that. Now we can come back, even with these NIL deals. The school gets a piece. Come on now, guys.
Yeah. Of
Parents,
course.
they love it, but come on now. You really think the school's gonna give you that? Okay, we're gonna give you that, but we're gonna take a piece too
Yep.
because they're saying you wouldn't have this NIL deal ones for us, which it's like the chicken and the egg, right? But at the same time, I think that I am seeing that, but a lot of it goes back to what I said in the beginning and the error, right? The error is instant. I think everything is just falling in line with the error, right? Sports, music, whatever. Everything is just instant now. This is what I call Generation Now is what my dad called
Yep.
it.
Yeah. I call it the
Generation
now
Now.
era. Yep. That's
You
all
know
it
what I'm
is.
saying? It's not next, it's not tomorrow, it's now or
And the structure of everything. So the structure used to be like when I was coming up, it was represented how kind of corporate structure was. Everything was top down, like hierarchical,
yeah.
top down, right? Well, now if you corporations, right, are more flat, right? Well, so is the same thing in athletics, right? There's power from the people at the bottom, and there's power from the people at the top, and they're both pushing in each direction to take advantage of their own opportunity. So everybody now, so it used to be like, okay, the top was supposed to look out for all the people below, which obviously didn't work out.
Never,
There were I would say there were good things. Like obviously when I played in the 90s, obviously there was no NAL or anything. And when I was on scholarship at UConn, it was like, you just did whatever the coach. And like you said, there were coaches that would run kids off that they didn't like and all that kind of stuff. There was all kinds of that. That part, the nice thing about transfer portal and NIL is they can run you off, but you still have an opportunity. So it works both ways, right? Yeah. So they could say, hey, you know what? I brought this kid in. He wasn't as good as I thought. I'm going to run him off. Well, in the old days, if they ran you off, like it was like, oh my, you might have another opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was it.
Didn't matter what level, right?
Exactly. Didn't matter what level. Now you probably have an opportunity because there are a lot more kids that are getting run off, and everybody knows about it. And the players have some level of power. You could be at a place and maybe you're playing well. They don't like your style of play. Like your style may not actually be a fit. Quarterback, obviously a prime example of that, right? Quarterback or running back, right? Some places like a power guy, some guys like a scat guy. So you could go to a place and think you're a good fit, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, they're not going to use my style. Like,
right.
Yeah. I got to move on. I got to go to a place that uses my style. And when you're 18 coming out of high school, or 17 or 18, you're just probably similar to like when I was coming out and Derek was coming out, you're coming out. Like you had all these opportunities, and at a point it becomes a little bit overwhelming. Yeah. And you say to yourself, okay, I like this guy, or I like this school for this reasons. Because I chose my school not for the coach either. I chose it because I liked the when I went on my visit, I liked the guys who like I was around. I was like, oh, these guys are pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like I could see myself hanging out with these guys. You know what I mean?
For the next 4 years.
Right. So that was more why I chose. Obviously, it had to be a good enough academic institution, all that kind of stuff. And obviously, you went to Boston College, which is a great school. So, but it was those things were all factors, but it wasn't like the coach per se either. Like I liked the coach.
Right.
I enjoyed, he was good to me in the recruiting process. He was the guy who brought me in was good when I was there. He ended up getting fired 2 years in, but I didn't know him well enough to say, oh, this is my guy. I was just like, you know what? The guys on the team are cool. I could see myself playing with these guys. You know what I mean? And that was a big, but I think now that's changed, right? So that's changed where they view it as like a 1 or 2 year deal, basically. Like I'm here, everybody seems cool right now, like you said now, right? Everybody seems cool right now. The coach seems cool right now. Mm-hmm. If that stays the same and I'm doing well, I'm good. If not, I'm out. That's kind of the mindset now, I think.
And I think, Dave, too, like I think a part of that, the whole guys now, you used to look
at. It's not right or wrong. It's really not a right or wrong thing. I'm sorry.
It's again, era-based, right? So you used to look at it when we were going to school, hey, I'm going for the next 4. This is where I'm going to be. And this is kind of how it's going to work. I'm going to get my degree. Then I'm hitting the league. Like we said, there was a very structured process to it. Mm-hmm. Now guys are going into this going, all right, I didn't get the Power 4 that I wanted coming out of high school. Right. I'm going to go here for the next year or 2, build my brand for me, okay? Then I'm going to hop in the portal, and I'm going to get the opportunity I thought I should have gotten out of high school, and that's how we're going to roll. Guys now are going into it with that thought process in their mind, and now you have college coaches that are going one of 2 ways. Okay, I know he's coming in here with that process. I'm going to basically use him for 2 years, right? Take the best I can from him. And then, hey, when you go up, awesome. Good luck. Hope it all works. Like, I'm okay with it. I got the 2 I needed, right? And then some guys are like, absolutely not. I want guys that are committed here for the next 4, even though they themselves as the coach might be gone that year because they got a better opportunity, right? So you're seeing a lot of that going into it, which is really kind of gets confusing. And like I said, I don't think it's right or wrong. You know what I mean? I don't think it's right or wrong. It's just what they've seen and what is out on social media. That's the market of the era we're living in.
And that's why it reminds me of, like, if you work for, like, let's say you work for, I don't know, a pharmaceutical company, right? And you did sales for them, right? If you come into this job and let's say you're a pharmaceutical salesperson and you're looking to make X amount of money, you're making X amount of money, you're doing well, and then if that company gives you more opportunities, awesome. I'll stay here,
Right.
get more opportunities. If it doesn't, maybe I start my own company. Maybe I go work for another company that might give me another. That's what it kind of. And then on the corporate side, like the guys who are your bosses or whatever, they're like, hey, this guy's a great salesperson. Cool. Let's give him everything he can as long as he's here. And obviously get him to get as much sales as we can as long as he's here. And then if he decides to move on, okay, but at least he did a great job while he was here. So that's why it reminds me at the highest level. Obviously, it's like that way all the way down to trying to move up, but I think that's what it reminds me of, which is interesting because we probably all grew up with like a kind of a noble view of sports. That's the only way I could put it. Like a noble view, like you viewed when I got into coaching and like when I ran camps and like when you were coming up and stuff, like when I started all that stuff, I thought of it as not just like my business, but like helping kids get an opportunity. What's changed dramatically is that everything is about everybody getting their own opportunity. And so the noble part of it has changed. It's not that there aren't people in it for the right reasons. There are, some aren't.
Right.
But I think when like you were coming, you probably felt like there were more people, even if they were pushing you hard and all that stuff, they probably had overall, even if they made mistakes, they were overall trying to get you in the right direction. And they might have made mistakes. They might have pushed you the wrong way. They may have blocked an opportunity that they didn't think was good for you, but not out of malicious intent, I would say. More because they thought, oh, this guy would be here. My high school coach did that to me. He came, and no offense, Eric, I know you played at Montclair State, but he came to me and said, hey, you should go to Montclair State. You know what I mean? I was already getting recruited by a lot of different schools, and I was like, Coach, I'm getting recruited by all these other schools already. Like, I'm not sure, So that was what he thought was going to be best for me. It wasn't his fault. That's what he thought would be best for me. He didn't know that I was getting recruited by other places, right? So that part has changed. So the hardest part, I think, for kids are how to find people like yourself or Derek or, maybe me like that can help them along their journey, that they don't feel like has to get something at the end of the process. That's the hardest part, I think, for athletes now and probably coaches. You know what I mean? Like if I go coach for somebody in high school or college, like, does this guy really want me to be on the staff, or does he just need me here right now?
Right.
And, you know what I mean? Or is he looking, or guys looking to jump opportunity? So the whole, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just how it is, right? The world is that way in general in almost everything we do. Why should we think it's going to be any different in sports? Whereas when we grew up, I think we felt like it was now that could have been an illusion, okay? But we felt like it was, what I'm saying? It could have been an illusion. But we felt more like it was that way. And when you got into working with kids, you felt like that. And me being an older guy who started kind of in that era and moved to now, like I remember, kids would come up to me after a camp and they still come up and say thank you. Yep. And there's still parents that are mad and all that kind of stuff. There was back then, but there was a lot more like, oh man, this was just, I just had a great time. This was a great opportunity. And it wasn't like, can I get something out of this immediately? Now they want pictures up now. They want video up now.
They want their rankings now, right? And coach, and I'm sure, with you, Jonathan, like I'm sure you're seeing it now with you as you continue to expand with your training, right? Where, you have some people that are, hey, I want this many sessions because I know it's going to take this to get to where I want to go. And then you have people that are, hey, I just did a session, why don't I have a scholarship?
Right.
Why did my 40 time didn't just drop? Like,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to already be hitting it, doing this. Or,
Yeah.
you said that, like they take you like gospel, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. For
it's
face value. Yep. Yep. Yep.
100%, man. And I'm sure you're starting to see it a little bit now. I do think you have a great perspective on it, that you totally understand the entire big picture, because you're kind of in that like era of, old school guys, but with
Yeah.
the new
You're
twist
young
on
enough.
it.
Yeah.
Yes, you're still young and relatable to the kids, right? You have that brand as terms of, look, I played at Boston College and, I was in the league for a little bit. So you understand those types of things where guys are going to flock to you because of that. And at the end of the day, you still have a kid's best interest in mind, whether you have to have that hard conversation, which unfortunately for Dave and I, we usually end up being the bad guy, because we're the ones that have to tell the kid the truth when he's a sophomore in high school about, look, I know a lot of other people have said, bud, that you're going to be a power 4 guy, but from what we see, this is the direction you should probably go. And look, are there outliers? Always, right? There's always those that totally screw the whole thing up for us, right? But unfortunately, we're looked at as the bad guy, when really we just have your best interest in mind to try and set you up for the future. And look, if that's how it has to be, that's okay. Because, I know at the end of the day, we're going to be honest. We have the kids' best interest in mind and parents' best interest, right? And I don't fault them for thinking a certain way about their children or whatever. But that's kind of the name of the game, man. Like, not many people have an opportunity to do what you did or play at that level. And I think sometimes that realization of, shit, like maybe my kid's not a power 4 player or a scholarship guy or at this level, right? But at the end of it, we can still use this great game to get you into a school to be successful, off the field, right? Which ultimately is the goal, right?
That's
Like,
the whole thing.
not many people play in the NFL. That's great for dreams. But if you can use this sport, play another 4 years and get that degree, right? That's the goal, not how much money can I make in college now, right? Which is kind of where you see it shifting. It's very tough, right? It's very tough.
It's extremely tough, and a lot of it is a lot of it because it's small. And as you were just saying, it's just like not many people get to do it, right? And then it feels like, I think it's like less than 2%, 1%, something like 1.3 that make it, or another 0.8 that actually make the team.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
and so, but in college, Division 1, I know Division 1's like, I think it's like 2.3, and I think for everybody, it's like 7% or 6% for all levels. I'm
7%
talking
of high
about.
school football players make
So
it
that
at some level of
9,
college football.
that means 90. And I was talking to somebody, because I was talking to a kid, the parents mainly. The kid seemed grateful of it. They seemed grateful of the opportunity to play, because they understood that it doesn't just end here. Like, this new era, right? The era is that there's more freedom. So, like, I can jump in a portal if I do well at this school, right? If I do well at this place, couple years, keep my grades right, keep my nose clean, put some film together, I could potentially go up, right? I could potentially catch somebody in the portal that says, hey, I need a receiver, I need a DB, I need that may want a junior as opposed to a freshman coming in. They may want a more, established junior that may have some all conference on their belt or whatever, right? And so he understood that. The parent was frustrated from the quality of the place. Like, oh, D2, no, we did all this for D. So what I had to explain is is that it's 7%, that there's 93 seniors. 93% of seniors all over the country. I think all over the world, really. I think those were world stats, because there's kids in Canada, Germany, what's next, trying to get over here too. 93% of seniors, their last game, whether it was Thanksgiving State Championship, second round, first, whatever, took their pads off, and that was it.
Never again.
They ended their career at 17, 18 years old.
Yep.
Your son has an opportunity to continue to play. And in this day and age, and which he understood, which we always explain, because I always tell you, gotta be opportunist. It's all about when that opportunity comes, cash in. It ain't about counting that. It ain't about counting on, wait, I only got a 6, 7, 9. No. It's about making them count. And the more that you do that, people pay attention. But I don't want to preach. But at the same time, he understood it. And so I had to explain, look, 93. And then when the parent, because they didn't know that. They didn't know that statistic. They're like, what, really? And we went and did the numbers of how many kids, and it was millions of kids in that 93 that are
Oh God,
not
yeah.
playing, that are probably, their whole life is probably changed. Their whole mental aspect is probably changed. Like, wait a minute, I'm not playing ball. I'm not
Right.
good enough.
Wait, in August, I'm
Nobody
not putting pads on again? What do you mean?
Nobody in all of these schools from every singles. You mean to tell me out of all of these, nobody gonna give me a shot? But you have a shot. You have somebody that not only that they're giving them scholarship, they're giving them
Right.
because the academic, and so they're not paying anything. So, but it was just the idea of where we're going for D1.
Yep.
Everybody wants to go D1. Right?
Correct.
But the idea, the people that, and I
Absolutely.
tell guys, if you're young, for any middle school guys that are watching, any high school guys that may watch and may come see this, any college guy, whatever, elementary, don't care, not too young. If you exercise the foundational key of gratitude, just the idea of saying, yo, I get to do this because my dad didn't get a chance to play. My his father said, we ain't playing. He Caribbean. They're from Guyana. I don't know football. We know
Right.
soccer. We know track. We know cricket. That's what, in boxing. You want to be
Yeah.
physical, go box.
Yeah.
But I don't know this football game. I don't know this. They talking about, my mother almost said I couldn't play. Because she said
Right.
when she found out that a collision was equivalent to a car crash, she
Oh,
said, hell
game
no.
over. Mama
She
said,
said, no, 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 no,
no
no, no, you
way.
not
No.
doing that. My dad was kind of like, look, I mean, your mom's living a hard bargain. She gonna talk about divorcing me, all type of whatever.
Yeah.
If you get hurt, listen, you know what I'm saying? You can't get hurt. You
Yeah.
got to hurt them. So that was my thing. That's how I was able to play. And from doing that, I was okay, well, this works. But I tell guys, look, you there, and there's kids in other countries, other places that don't get a chance. There's kids in the Midwest that got to work on the farm. There's kids that what's names that got to do this. You don't. Everybody's situation is different. So if you're saying, your parents saying, I'm gonna sign you up for football, you get to play and you get to do this and you love to do it, anything, any opportunity. Like, you know what I'm saying? My grandfather told me 3 hots and a cot. Everything else you should be able to do on your own.
That's it.
So you have an opportunity to play. You have an opportunity to do things. And there are so many, as you guys know, Dave, you've seen it, I'm sure. Kids from Timbuktu State playing 11 years in the league. It does not matter where you go.
Yep.
And I try to, I get on my knees and beg guys to listen to me when they say that, because they go into these next opportunities with just the worst attitude. The worst attitude mental. And they don't understand the connection between your mental, your psyche, and your physical, and how that plays a part. You have to, sometimes you gotta even trick yourself. But
Yeah.
it is, but not getting too much of a tangent, but what you said in there, coach, is that was deep when you said the idea of just the ability of being grateful to play and being, they get an opportunity. That is where kids need to really stay first. First. Now, obviously within the opportunity, you'll find out what's good for you, what's bad, what's negative, what's good, whatever, right? But first, just getting the opportunity. Me in college, I was blessed enough in high school to have 41 Division I scholarships. I
Yep.
only wanted 3.
Right. No,
I
Yeah.
only
you only
wanted
need
3 to
you
say
can only
one
pick
school that I
one.
really like, and I hope Rutgers is one of them, because that's my dream. I want to go to. I want to. If Rutgers opportunity, if all stars align, I'm going there. That's the state. That's, come on now, it's Jersey, and so Rutgers is one of them. A dream school, USC. Hopefully, that's a dream. That's like a, if they come get me, Reggie Bush and all them, that'll be great to go there. That's probably the only school that'll pull me away from Rutgers. And then the third school is kind of like whatever. Just in case those 2 schools don't happen, I got somewhere to go. That's all I wanted. So I think a lot of the kids that I've noticed that have had the most success have been the kids that have understood that perspective.
Yeah.
The just being grateful that, yo, I'm just happy to play this game. You know what I'm saying? I get a chance to play. I get a chance to play 4 more years. I had a kid that's going to FDU. He's like, yeah, they're making fun. Like, some kids was making fun of FDU, and it's just small or whatever, and it wasn't giving me that much hype. And I was, he did a commitment in the gym, and kids were like, oh, it's just D3. Why are we committing for D3? But he understood, yo, my journey's not over. There was times in the season he got hurt his junior season, times his senior season. He like, I didn't even know if I was gonna play. Like, he was times where he would talk about he going home, and he would get personal. It's my guy. He shall remain nameless, but he, you know what I'm saying, was really emotional to the point where sometimes he cried himself to sleep because he's like, I love this game, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to play after this, and I don't know what I'm not ready at 18 to get my life and flip it. I
Right.
wasn't bargaining for that. So a lot of that happens. and somebody gives you an opportunity to play, man, please, man, come on.
Yep.
Well, I
Like,
think
what are we talking about?
It's a great point.
you're dead on. What's hard, I think, for some parents to understand is just because you spent money on your child doesn't mean
Right.
that he's gonna turn out. I mean, in today's world, there's a lot of people spending
Oh
money on
God.
their
Oh
children.
my goodness. Oh my
They're,
You
goodness.
go
they're spending college tuition on trainers and
Yes,
this and that.
yes,
I mean,
yes.
by the
So
time you add it all up,
it's
woo!
kind of now like people listen. That's part of the process is getting out and a lot of times getting with somebody to get better. It's kind of I would say it's like the cost of attendance, right? It's kind of the cost of attendance. Now there are plenty of people who do without it too, right? Like the people that are
Absolutely.
willing to put in the work will go out. Like I went out. There wasn't trainers when I was. It wasn't like it was. It was my dad. Much like my dad. He said, "Okay, we're gonna go sprints." I walked out of my house into the street and ran sprints. And it would be like it would be that telephone pole we figured out was like around 30 yards, and the next one was 30. So we would like figure
Yeah,
out
yeah.
that was how our workouts were by the telephone poles, how many yards apart. By
Right.
walking it off. We're like, okay, this is about 30 yards. So if we do like 8 repeats of 3 telephone poles, that's 90-yard sprints we're running. So
Right.
listen, in high school I was doing that. I would go out at night after practice, run 10 sprints because I was a running back in high school and to stay in shape. And I would run after practice and I would go after practice and I lived in the apartment complex and there was pole. I didn't know how long the distance was. I just
Yeah.
figured out by walking it off the poles. And so, but that's not the world now. In order to do like jumps, I jumped on
Yeah, Stan,
stairwell.
yeah.
That was my box jumps. And then at my mother's house, we had a fireplace in the I don't know why it was from like the 1930s or something. Some weird fireplace in the middle of the yard. I don't know why nobody used it. But it was a great box. I didn't have box jumps. I jumped on top of it. I literally I knew it was very high because sometimes like if you didn't and it was stone. So if you didn't get up on it,
Yeah.
you would hit your
Just get up
shin.
on it. Just get on it.
Yeah, you just gotta get on it. Like you just had to get on it. Like there was no like and sometimes you missed, and my mom would be like, What are you doing out there? You know what I mean? I'm trying to get my vertical up.
Yep.
It didn't work effectively enough since my vertical was only 31. But it got me better, right? So, but now you could go to a place. They could go to someone like you and get better and do all that stuff in a much more structured environment. And they think that because they hand over some money, that means that no, it's kind of now everybody is kind of working to a certain point.
You kind of have to.
Yeah, and you could do it on your own if you're willing to do some of those things and buy some stuff off Amazon. I mean, you could do it, but that's part of it. And I think the athlete understands that when you explain it to him right away, like you said. I think the parent requires a lot of times a conversation because they're looking at their hard-earned money and they're like, wow, I could have spent it. Like I always say, hey, I sent my kid to this and that stuff. I'm like, if he's not doing good at school, I always say, we'll take that money and put it to a tutor. Like, you have X amount of dollars that you might have as a parent, right?
Right.
And if he's doing well in one area, you don't have to spend there. But if he isn't, you got to, you might have to spend on this or that, right? So I think that's what it is. But I think that they feel like once they do that, it becomes a right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
it's not the case.
On the academic side, if you've ever been like in a Kumon and the parents that drop their kids off there on the academic side, those parents are the same way about their kid from an academic side. I'm spending all this money on you to learn calculus,
right? And that you can get a whatever on your SATs and all this other kind of stuff. Yeah, like what are we doing?
And you only can score this on your SATs, So parents as a whole, no matter what their focus is, they have this kind of inflated view of what should happen from it, and it's pretty interesting. But the kid, I think, does start to get that understanding, and and you have to educate the parent. I think you have a great grasp of it. I have one question on the running back side of it, like on the pure skill side. What are some of the things that you think running backs have to work on to improve? Now, I always have thought like you probably had a certain amount of innate instincts as far as feeling things and stuff. But what are some of the things that they can do to really improve their skills? Is there anything visually they can do? Is there anything, obviously training is part of it, but like specific things that they could do?
Right. Well, the first thing I would say to a back is you got to be able to stay on your feet. So I would say the biggest thing, if anything, is core instability. Like and the thing about it, a lot of backs, like parents and things like that, they'll see that and be like, why are we spending so much time of the session? Like I had one parent ask, and I say, you can ask questions as long as you're not annoying, as long as you're respectful, right? And so, they asked me, they said, why are you guys spending so much time with stability, or spending a good chunk of time with stability? Shouldn't we be footwork or more physical things, right? And so I said, okay, we can. I said one session I proved it to them. I said we didn't do it. We didn't do any stability. We kind of just, because I start the sessions that way. And so I say, and most of the guys they were making their cuts are slipping out of them, right? One time we practice the spin, so we don't really make it like a reactive thing. And I tell guys, I say, you're not gonna tell. You're gonna say, I'm gonna spin this rep, right? But it's a reactive thing. But you have to practice the move so that when it happens, you're not on your back. Your body is used to, your feet, they're used to making that move, right? So our biggest thing is it's not a surprise, right? It's never a surprise. Our feet are moving, it's never a surprise. We got to cut, we got to do this, right? So they were doing so, and they found themselves on the ground. Some of them were on the ground sometimes. They were falling and they were tripping out of their stuff. And the parent, it was after the third water break, the parent looked at me and he tapped me on my shoulder and said, I'm going to let you do you.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
And he said, I'm going to let you do you. You know exactly what you're talking about. And it's funny, I don't press the NFL thing. I don't, because I don't want people to be like first nervous, because some guys get nervous and I'm noticing. They think that I'm going to judge them extra, or, they feel a little like, okay, whatever. But I always tell them, look, I know the things that they need, you know what I'm saying? And so first and foremost, stability. You got to be able to stay on your feet. You got to be able to break tackles. You got to be able to make the first guy miss. You got to be able to break the first guy down. Can't take you down one guy, right? We all know that. Second, I would say the ability to stop and start, acceleration management, the ability to not, I wouldn't say stop, but decel, because you never want to stop as a back. You know what I'm saying? We always decel. You got to change speeds. I give me a back with one speed, I'll give you a linebacker in a couple years.
I love the way you phrased it.
Yeah, real talk. You give me a running back, because that was my uncle. He said, "Look, nephew, you gotta change speeds. Right now, you got one great speed where nobody is if you get going, it's hard to stop you. But there's gonna be some guys. You may not have the best line sometimes. You may not have. You might be in a situation where you gotta make some people miss before the line of scrimmage, right? Sometimes, if you can't do that, then all people are gonna find out. All we gotta do is blitz this guy.
Yep.
Every time he takes the ball, just blitz him or somebody, and that's how we get to him, right? So I always tell guys to be able to stop and start and change your direction. I mean, if you can't change direction as a back, I mean, it's tough, right? Not saying that you can't, right? Not saying that you can't be effective, right? But I'm telling guys stability and mobility, being able to move and being able to be controlling of your feet and your body. To stop and start, your deceleration management has to be essential. We always going to work that very much. And your footwork. Your footwork is everything. I tell all my guys, all touchdowns start with footwork. All touchdowns or bad runs start with good or bad footwork. Chances are, if your footwork is terrible, you're not on your landmark, right? For the most part, right? If your footwork isn't keen, that's why we used to do that at Boston College. Coach Brian White. Shout out to Brian White.
What a great dude. What a great dude. I met him when he was at the University of Florida, bro. Like, what a great dude.
That was my dude. So he recruited me at Florida at Boston when I was at prep. I didn't go to Florida. We met again at Boston College. He was my running back coach.
Awesome dude.
So yeah, so it was cool like that. But we used to go stances in pockets. We go out of our stance in our pocket, footwork in the pocket. You would be surprised, Dave. Yeah, I'm sure you know how many backs cannot take a handoff.
Yes, it's amazing.
It's like, hey, running back 101, right? You would think, right? Running back 101, like the ability to put the ball in the spot where it needs. It's the same thing. Look, same thing with wideouts, right? Like you'd be thinking every wideout knows how to catch. Not even close, right? Like
no. And everybody wants to do those things. So everything else, the cuts, the jumps, the this and that, the stuff that looks cool on camera.
There it is.
I say these three things mainly: your base, right? Your base, balance, and footwork. If you have those things as a back, as any athlete, but as a tailback, I don't care how fast I don't care how you're going to be effective. I know backs that have 4.6, 4.7 that were effective, had 1,000-yard seasons, kept pumping them out because they break tackles, they understand themselves, they understand what type of back they are and they aren't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's a big thing. Got a lot of big backs, pretty. You know what I'm saying? Which I'm like, get your big ass downhill and lower your shoulder and do what you got to do. You got to be situational, okay? But those are really the 5 things you got to understand. But those last 2 things are more mental. But the physical things, base, stability, mobility, being able to decelerate at any spot, no surprise, and having great footwork, right? And having phenomenal footwork. And the other 2 things that are mental, you got to understand who you are as a back, who you're not, and you gotta know situations. You got to know situations. You got to know the down and distance. You got to know situations. Straight up.
That's unbelievable, and that's 100%.
Great take.
I think, yeah, absolutely great take. I can't thank you enough for coming on. I mean, it's important for athletes to get around guys that have a great perspective like yourself. As long as you're in Jersey for now, and then wherever you go one day out after that. But you know, to get around you and really, because you have that perspective, you played at the highest level. You were obviously a standout in college, a standout in high school, and you went through that journey, and you kind of know what it feels like to go through that journey. And you know, I think a lot has to a lot of respect needs to get paid to guys that have been through that journey and the perspective that they have, you know, because you can learn a lot of that. And I don't think that you can learn. You can watch all the interviews you want and get perspective from other people, but until you talk to somebody who's been down that journey, like face to face, you kind of understand it, because they can, you know, if you watch something on when the camera's on, they're people always gear their conversation a little bit when the camera's on, but when you're talking to a person, they can give you the perspective. They can tell you, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And give you an idea. And then you can make, you know, then parents and athletes can make their own decisions, whatever those decisions are, but gain that perspective. And me and Derek always talk about it. Like I'm always flabbergasted at how few parents leverage those experiences. You know, they want to talk to their neighbor who knew a kid who went to Division I. You know what I mean? And like my neighbor said, it's like, okay, I actually did it. I can tell you what I went through myself. You don't have to do what I did. I can just tell you what happened to me. You know,
and I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think part of it, not to cut you off, I think as you said that, it's just I could see a little bit why, because I have a couple friends who have played, obviously, as we probably have teammates and things. We have as athletes, we talk strong and we move strong, and sometimes we have very little patience because we're around people that have very little patience. Our coaches, they have less patience than we do, and so sometimes when we're explaining things, you don't get it. We have a tendency of being like, this person just don't get it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes as the lay person, because my mom, I was just thinking about it. Like when I was in high school, she was asking me about a play, and I was just like, I was trying to explain it to her, and it might have been like 48 seconds where I was like, all right, Mom, damn, you ain't gonna never need this stuff. Why you asking me? You know what I'm saying? Because I got like 5,000 other things to think about as far as like what I'm trying to do, what I'm going to eat today. Okay, what type of training we doing today, right? So sometimes, and she said, well, sometimes you can be unapproachable. If you want to teach somebody, you can't make them feel a certain way. And I think that sometimes as athletes, right, we have a tendency of doing that. Sometimes if we're talking to who knows it, who gets it, hey, when you're here, your family. But if you don't, then it's like, you don't get it. And a lot of it has to do with fans, being boisterous sometimes and having more of an opinion where you don't really know. And you're kind of like, when you're used to that as an athlete, you're like, all right, man, you feel like you're talking to another person like that. And so I think us as, that we do a good job of trying to get, not to be condescending to the layperson, but getting it to, that we're all great teachers and that we can sit there and find something in, somebody else's world that says, okay, well, maybe you don't get this, but you understand this. And
Right.
I can connect what I'm saying as far as football to what you have in your life that is very much incongruent to it. So
Absolutely.
This is what that is. And then it's just like, oh, wow, okay, great. And that's one thing, one of the parents that talked to me, he said, Jonathan, they're heading to college this year. And they said, we're going to still be working out with you when he comes back home. I'm actually going to meet him the next week down on spring break. But they said the thing that I very much am appreciative for you about, regardless of all the training and things like that, but the fact that you were patient with us as far as the experience, as far as the information, and you made us feel as if like you broke it down to a level that we could understand. We've worked with other coaches before. We've worked with it, and sometimes it's like they're just trying to get through. Just like you say, Dave, is it right or wrong? No. I mean, it's how we are. It's how we came up. Sometimes it's just a schedule, right? Sometimes it's a situation. It is what it is. But they appreciated the fact that I was just able to just really break it down to them and get them to understand, look, this is what it is. This is why I'm doing this. This is what this coach means. This is what this recruiter is talking about. I think you need to ask these questions on the visit, things of that nature. And so I think I can understand why the layperson kind of feels a little bit like, okay, maybe I want to go to somebody who may know a little bit. They not know everything, but they know a little bit more than I do, rather than an expert who's gonna look at me like a pupil, rather than somebody that's having a conversation with them. So I can get it, but at the same time, I feel D. You want to get with somebody that knows. You know what I'm saying? You want to get with somebody that understands. You want to get with somebody, especially if your money's involved, if your investment is involved, right? We're investing in ourselves to get an investment, is what I tell my guys at Red Breed and my girls. We're not here to hang out. I'll hang out with you for free. We can get with each other on social media, talk, whatever, do this, talking, whatever. We cool like that, and they know that. Some of them I hang out, they just hit me up just to hang, and we hang. That's fine. That's cool like that. Respect to their parents, everything, right? But we are doing this to gain an investment. You're investing in yourself so that somebody else can invest in you. Because just like we say, that's the way of the world. Nobody going to invest in no business owner and no brand manager that hasn't done that themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But getting the parents to understand all that is what, and so I can understand. I know that's long-winded, but I can understand both sides of it. But they need to get with the experts. They need to get with the experts, though.
No,
there's a lot of information out there.
No, great take. I think that's a great perspective on it. The patience part of it is always hard. And like when you're used to working with athletes as a coach or as an athlete yourself, you're used to trying to filter through like who gets it, like who's going to be able to get there.
Yep.
Be able to get there. And you get this thing in your head sometimes that you're like, well, this person's not going to get it. Like they're just not going to get it. And maybe they are close. Like sometimes, we don't realize that they're close. They're just like, you just have to hit on the right example. Right. And that's that hits on it. And then there's some people that never do get it. But I think, your point is really valid. And I think I love your perspective. You have a great perspective. I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's really been great.
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you, Coach.
Definitely.
And we'll see you soon down the road. Don't leave too soon.
We can do. Don't leave too quick, bud.
We'll see. I mean, I'm still got the Jersey at heart. It's hard because every time I leave out and I always think about Jersey, come back. Everything I know is here.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've only ever lived in Boston, But yeah. So I mean, I know I'm just my mom always say, you just talking. If you would have done it, you would have done it by now. But so we'll see on that.
But hey, Coach, we appreciate you. Anything we can do for you, please let us know,
Definitely.
and we'll talk soon. Thanks, buddy.
Definitely. Appreciate you guys. Take care. Great
Take care,
show.
Coach. See you
All
later.
right, Coach. Thank you. Bye. That was great.
Good
Great
perspective, man.
Yeah, really, really great perspective. I enjoyed that a lot. I really enjoyed it.
I love the way he worded the acceleration management as part of running back skills. I loved that. I thought that was a really great way. Right. And because look, even when you say stop and start, everybody takes it for what it is and will literally stop. Right. So to use that management of acceleration, the deceleration, all that stuff, I just thought that was a really great way of putting that skill or labeling that skill to kind of get across what it is. I thought that was excellent.
Yes, it's really changing speeds.
Correct.
Not stopping and start. That's a great cue point. You're changing your speeds to make them,
because we know how it is, and obviously the way you explain that to certain backs. Right now, a higher level back would get that. Okay, I don't actually want to stop. He doesn't really mean that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the same thing when when I teach like tackling and whatnot, right? Everybody wants to use like breakdown. And it's like, dude, when I think of breakdown, like the car stops. Like, I don't want you to stop. I want you to come to balance and then continue to accelerate, right? So it's all in the wording of things. And I think he obviously gets that in talking about, how to break it down so that somebody that's not in the football world or not in this can understand it, using or finding those things that they can relate to. He's got a real good perspective on it, man. It must be that Boston College education.
That's it. One of the things too that I think is interesting, like what from like and you played basketball, so you know this. Like from coaching basketball a little bit, I realized staying in front of the person is really important. Meaning on defense, right? So it's the same. It's very relatable to football, and like when you're coming downhill. The key is as you're going to make the play is to stay in front of the person, right?
Yep.
It's not to, because like when you see a kid try to go for a steal,
right?
Basketball, now sometimes they get the steal, right?
Right.
The calculated risk, meaning you're out of position, right?
Absolutely.
So you want to stay in front of the person in order to be able to make play, because if you miss, you still give other people a chance to make a play if you stay in front of them.
Correct.
But if you get out of position, it's really interesting. The way you cue words.
Right. It's just like as a defensive back, right? Like, okay, if you're going to go for that pick, you better make that pick. If you don't, but when you teach it, all right, I'm going to go for the pick, but this trail hand is going to stay on his hip. That way, if I miss, I still can make a tackle, right? Like It's just those types of things that you gotta, explain to it. And, like you said, calculated risks when, talked about, one of the other important parts of being a running back is, situational, no situations, no down and distance, know when you can strive for that and reach out for that extra yard if you need to, or know, hey, I got to go down here. Right. Or, when to stay in bounds, like those types of things too. Right. I think that's extremely cerebral of like, hey, this is high level running back play.
It's your point on DB, correct? It's so good because that's one of the things that I see at the older kids that isn't taught as much, and I'm surprised by that. Like being able to have your arm in position to tackle as you're reaching in front, and if your break is really good and you can step completely in front, make the pick, you got to get
100%.
But I'm so surprised at how many older kids lean the opposite way with it. I can't believe it.
It's because, and I think it has.
Why is that?
I personally think it has a lot to do with how little tackling is focused on now in the game itself. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're playing 7-on-7. They're playing flag. They're doing all of these things where, hey, an interception is the only thing that really matters, right? And if I miss the interception, well, whatever, right? Whereas in tackle, like, no, you still have to now go tackle that person, right? Because you can sell out for an interception, miss, and then tag the guy and go, or maybe still be able to get a flag when it is. You know what I'm saying? And, tackle, like, you have to get the guy on the ground. Like, that's a big part of it too, And, I stress this so much to the guys just DBs and secondary play in general. If you're a defensive lineman and you make a mistake, you have linebackers and DBs to make a play. If you're a linebacker, you have a DB that can still make a play. If you make a mistake in the secondary, like a missed tackle like that, that's a touchdown. There's nobody else. There's no other person there. You know what I mean? So you really have to be calculated when it comes to the risks that you're taking, right? Even in terms of like run support, right? Like if I'm running the alley, I got to know that, hey, I'm here because, everybody else's fit is coming from this way. If I miss here, there's no one else out there. You know what I mean? Or as a corner, right? Like I got to keep things this way because my leverage tells me, these other guys are fitting into this, giant picture of what is 11 guys on my side of the ball. And if I don't do that right, that's a touchdown. You know what I mean? Like there's great and bad about playing in the secondary is most of your plays are highlights. Problem is sometimes the highlights are for the other guy that just beat you, right? Yep. Like either way, you miss something like that, you're ending up on ESPN and it might be good and it might be bad. So you better figure it out.
Great point. Great podcast. And
we're back Monday.
Oh, we are. Oh, but yeah.
Yep, we'll be back Monday with the head strength coach from University of Rhode Island.
Perfect. All right. Till then.